Edward Kimball was a Sunday school teacher in a small church in Boston. And like most Sunday school teachers, probably in small churches, felt that their main job was to keep the children occupied while the adults enjoyed the service. But he did this. He went to Sunday school and taught. At the same time, there was a young boy who was in his teens, who had lost his father at the age of 4 and was being raised by a mother along with another 11 or 12 children. She was just unable to do this. He had never been taught the Bible, never been involved with any kind of Sunday school, but because of the circumstances, the mother sent him to live with his uncle in Boston, the uncle running a shoe store. He was going to work there. And part of the condition was that he would go to Sunday school, which he reluctantly did for a short time. The Sunday school was the one taught by Edward Kimball. He left after a few Sundays, didn't really come back. Now, in many cases, that would have been the end of the story. There'd be no more to it. The Sunday school teacher would just keep on teaching, and the boy would be gone. But Kimball felt a certain affinity for this young man, and so he went to the store where he was working. And being shy, he paused for a long time outside the door, wondering whether to go in or not. But he eventually did. And he talked to the boy about God and about Christ in the store. But left thinking he had been a failure and nothing had happened. But unbeknownst to him, the boy did have some stirrings in his heart, and he went on to follow Christ. When he finished in Boston, he went back to Chicago, started a shoe company himself, but eventually left this because he had the call to ministry, and he developed a church and also a YCMA mission. It was unfortunately lost in a fire, and at that time, this young man felt the call to go in a missionary field. His name was Dwight Moody. And he went on to develop the Moody Bible Institute and the Moody Press, and became one of the most famous evangelists in history. It is said that before he died, he preached up to 6 sermons a day and preached to literally millions of people.
Wow. Yes.
Now that would be a good story if it ended there, but it didn't. Because one of his crusades was in England. And a young preacher came to see him and to hear his crusade, and he became convicted and became a friend of Moody's. His name was F.H. Meyer. And he went on in his own right to become a world-class evangelist and speaker and an author, writing over 75 books about Christ and the gospel. He accompanied Moody on a number of crusades in North America. And at one crusade where Moody was speaking, a young preacher who was somewhat disillusioned came to hear him. And he got fired up. His name was Willard Chapman. And he became very enthusiastic after hearing Moody, but he also became disillusioned after a few years until he heard Reverend Meyer speak. And Meyer issued a challenge, and he said, if you are not willing to give up everything for Christ, are you willing to become willing? And that inspired Chapman to the point where he went on to become associated with the largest Sunday school in the world at that time and one of the largest churches on earth. Again, that would be a great story if it ended there, but it didn't. It goes on. You see, a young baseball player who was going down the street one day in Chicago and heard a group preaching on the street corner. And he stopped and listened. And it caught him. So he gave his life to Christ. He wasn't educated. He was an orphan. He wasn't educated. And he went on to become a minister and also became involved with Reverend Chapman, who hired him to go with him on crusades. It wasn't long before he went out on his own because his name was Billy Sunday. And he became the greatest evangelist in North America up to that point in time, preaching to literally hundreds of thousands of people. One of his crusades was in the southern states, and it caught a lot of people on fire because he was very plain spoken. He didn't hold back anything. One of his sayings was, going to church no more makes you a Christian than going to a garage makes you a car. Okay, that's pretty blunt. Okay? He said, nowadays we think we are too smart to believe in the virgin birth of Jesus and too well educated to believe in the resurrection. The truth that hits home. He went down to the southern states and preached, and after a while the fervor sort of waned again, so people asked him to come back. Well, he didn't, but he sent an associate who had become involved with him named Mordecai Ham. Mordecai Ham led some crusades in the southern states. And at one crusade in Carolina, 2 teenagers came. Initially came to disrupt the meetings and to sort of make fun of the situation. But when they saw how large the crowd was, they became a bit intimidated and just sat and listened. Then they came back the next night and sat and listened. And a third night. And pretty soon one of them gave his heart to Christ as well. His name was Billy Graham. And he went on to become the evangelist we all know. Now all this happened in a line from Edward Kimball talking to a young boy in a shoe store about Christ, after hesitating outside the door. Would this all have happened if Edward Kimball had not done this? We'll never know, because he did do it, and it did happen. Robert Frost wrote a poem which he ended this way. 2 roads diverged in a woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. We all have diverging roads meeting us every day. Robert Kimball could have taken the easy road and not gone in the store and said anything. But he took the road that was less traveled and converted a young boy who became a world's great evangelist and went on to other people become evangelists following that. We all have roads that diverge. We all have decisions to make. Do we have the courage to take the road that's less traveled or not? We don't know what difference it will make in the long run if we do.
Amen.
That's something to think about.
Amen.